Hey, what's going on, everyone? Today, let's talk briefly about Power Platform Environments Microsoft 365. This will be a multi-part series with multiple topics covered across the Power Platform. What are Power Platform environments? Well, to start, you'll likely notice if navigate to Power Apps in your tenant or visit the URL of make.powerapps.com or make.powerautomate.com. Uh, you'll notice at the top there's a reference here to an environment. Many times it'll be the default environment that comes with your tenant out of the box. This is actually my default one that I renamed. There's a couple interesting things just to note off the bat here about default environments. You can't delete the default environment, and licensed tenant users can create solutions here like Power Apps and Flows without restriction in this environment, which is not the case in other types of environments like production environments. There are multiple types. We'll go over like I just mentioned, like there's production, sandbox, trial, and developer. In those, in some of those, you can control, who can create assets within the environment with environment security groups. Usually, the start, I guess, the default environment here will have a very uninspiring name out of the box. So most folks rename it. I rename mine to personal productivity, which is a common practice because that's exactly what it should be used for. It should only be really used for smaller applications. You don't want to put mission critical applications in the default environment. If you're doing proper application lifecycle management, you're going to want to put it in a production environment. So a lot of cases you're thinking to yourself, okay, well, why use environments in the first place? And like I was talking about, it's for application lifecycle management. So what you've seen in the past with dev, QA, and prod can be replicated with the Power Platform environments. So if I click this, I have a dev environment and my default environment. But a lot of times you'll see, you know, a prod, a QA, and for larger organizations, it's pretty common to see, a dev, QA, and prod for multiple regions. So like if there's a presence in Europe, a presence in Australia, you'll have like a dev, QA, prod for different regions. And part of like when you set up your environment, one of the components you can select is the region, and that'll obviously help with performance. You can think of environments like containers. Objects like Power Apps and Power Automate flows can be packaged and moved between them. There's some best practices you'll want to consider around environments. For example, by default, Microsoft allows anyone to create an environment out of the box, which isn't great. Typically, it would be good to set the environment creation and configuration to an admin task only. So, where can we do that, and who can update the settings to do that? If I'm on make.powerapps.com, I can go to the admin center this way, or you can go to admin.powerplatform.microsoft.com. That will obviously get you there as well. Now, if you don't have, so you need to be a global admin, a Dynamics admin, or Power Platform admin to properly, work through these settings here, or be able to, adjust various settings in here. The way you'll get that is if for some reason you need to have it, or you're wondering how to give it to somebody, you need to go to your admin.microsoft.com if you have permissions to do this, and pick a user and give them an admin center access role, which in this case, I picked, the Power Platform Administrator, um, which would make sense in this case. So let's go back to the Power Platform Admin Center. Here, there's a couple of things I want to flag as initial best practices to kind of get it kicked off. As I was talking about, if I go to settings, the production environment assignments, by default, it says who can create and manage environments. Believe it or not, like, and everyone is selected by default. It's probably a good idea to go ahead and have only admins do it. If people make environments, it will take a gig of your dataverse space and needed capacity. So you typically want to restrict that to admin roles. And while we're here in this settings area, we probably also want to restrict add-ons. So again, this is set by any environment admin by default, but we probably only want specific admins for that. It's just gatekeeping it additionally. Um, it certainly you don't necessarily want people just eating up different resources, and I think it's just more of like you just need to go through and kind of check to see what it's currently set at, if it's hasn't been checked in a while. Other types like the trial environments, it's probably fine to have everyone set for that. Those are environments that clean up every 30 days, and it's fine if people want to make those, knowing the limitations of those. Same with yeah, same with developers. So here, like I was mentioning earlier, another great thing to do is just go ahead and rename the default environment. If your environment's called default and then some, or it has some name with default in it, go ahead and give it personal productivity. That would be much more descriptive for it. And like I was mentioning earlier, like security groups can't be assigned to default and the developer environment, so people can make objects in those environments without restriction. If we go back to home, one other thing I wanted to kind of point out is, well, let's go to environments actually. Here, this is what I was kind of talking about earlier. Uh, it's pretty obvious, a local region can provide quicker data access. So QA prod type setup, other places to have QA prod. If you have one in the United Kingdom, one in South America, that sort of thing. You see that here's a different type of environments. I'll have a link so you don't have to memorize these, but typically developer and trial, these don't count against your capacity. It starts getting a little more into being concerned about that when you're dealing with production environment sandboxes. So those are just some basic ways to kind of get going on that. Um, in the upcoming parts, we'll talk about some additional best practices around data policies, moving solutions between the environments for application lifecycle management, and getting into settings and creating some new ones a bit more. Thanks for watching today.